Well, I'm surprised to hear this, but apparently veterans who put their lives on the line for us can be stripped of their benefits, like at VA, if they don't adhere to a code of conduct. This is the view of Representative Greg Steube, a Republican from here in the state of Florida. And he has written a letter to the Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Dennis McDonough. At least he signed on to it. He's pretty upset by this, and I don't blame him. Let's talk about what kind of code of conduct these veterans must adhere to in order to continue to receive their benefits. Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so tell us how this all came about, and is this part of the woke agenda of the Biden administration, do you think?
Well, it 100% is, but just as a piece of background so your listeners understand, I'm service-connected disabled. I use the VA for health care,
right,
mainly because I want to know what our veterans deal with on a day-to-day going through the VA system. And just got a letter at home from the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, not from your clinic, not from the hospital, not from anything, not from your provider or your doctor, but from the Secretary. And I read the letter, and it's talking about restricting our access based on adhering to a code of conduct concerning gender identity and expression and all of these very woke, leftist, progressive terms that also, putting my lawyer hat on, I was like, wait a second here. None of this is legal. None of this would be defensible in court.
Right.
And they even threatened in the letter that if you don't adhere to this leftist code of conduct, which is completely subjective to whoever the people are in the clinic, that they're going to change, if this behavior is within the prohibited conduct or disruptive in their view, they're going to change the way that they service that veteran. Does that mean they're going to take away our
rights? Yeah.
Rights? Are they going to change how they give us medical service? I mean, after I read the letter, I just was beside myself, and I'm like, you know what? They probably didn't send this to congressional members, and just so happens that I also am a disabled veteran,
right,
so I got the letter.
Right.
So let's draft up a response and ask them some simple questions and see if the secretary is willing to answer.
And did you get an answer yet?
No, we sent it out on the 1st. It just came out. But one of the questions that I have is he specifically says they list, and I'm quoting, gender identity or expression as a potential basis for discrimination. So I'm asking him questions like, what is your legal definition of discrimination based on this determination? Simple things like that none of this is legal. None of this is defined in the law because those type of things don't allow you to be able to deny veterans benefits based on a certain subjective code of conduct. So I'm very curious to see if the secretary is going to get back to me on that.
Fascinating. If he does, please get back to us so we can have you back on to talk about it. Hey, while I have you, and given your background and your current position as well, what do you think we need to do with Ukraine, given the atrocities that we see and have proof of now, just outside of Kyiv yesterday?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I served in Iraq. I supported the Trump administration's move to get out of Afghanistan. I certainly didn't support the way the Biden administration actually executed that.
Right.
We should have stuck to the deal that the Trump administration had negotiated. And so and I've said all along, I don't support American troops on the ground, boots on the ground in Ukraine. I don't support American airstrikes in Ukraine because Putin's obviously looking for any excuse at all to turn his weapons, or there's been a lot of talk about, and they've said it themselves in a very threatening manner, that they may use tactical nukes that are on the border.
Right.
So you have to be very mindful of that. But I can't help as a person who served our military, who knows our history of what happened in World War II, and you're now seeing these very vivid pictures of people being executed, mass graves, civilians being targeted. I don't know how you can't call that genocide. I don't know how you can't call that war crimes. For weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, the Biden administration, Kamala Harris and the president specifically refused to call it actual war crimes, and now they're suddenly starting to turn around because the American people are like, how is that not a war crime?
Right.
And Republicans are starting to ask very strong questions. When you're executing civilians, when you're targeting maternity hospitals, and you're killing children, how is that not a war crime? So I think the American people's probably position on this has started to change.
Yes.
We did a poll in my district. I represent 9 counties in Florida. I almost go coast to coast, Sarasota coastline and Charlotte all the way to the Palm Beach County line. And there was a pretty broad-based support, and this is not just Republicans, but this is Republicans, Democrats, and Independents in my district, that supported airstrikes in the area and supported the Ukrainians to be able to have the weaponry that they need to support themselves.
Yes.
I voted and supported on sending them weapons. It was a good thing that the Trump administration sent them javelins when they did during the Trump administration, so they at least had those when all this was occurring. But what's been unfortunate about all this is the White House has been so behind what has been happening that we're reacting and not being offensive in our conduct. And offensive not militarily, but offensive in the sense that sanctions should have been put in place in 2014 when the Russians invaded Crimea.
Right.
And they didn't. They violated international law when they did that. They violated the Budapest Papers that we were a signature to, that required the Ukrainians not to develop nuclear capabilities.
Right. And we were supposed to protect them, too, weren't we? Weren't we supposed to defend them?
It's not as strong as like it would be in, say, Taiwan or a NATO ally, but it does require the Russians to recognize their sovereignty.
Yes.
They clearly violated that in 2014. Obama was president, Biden was vice president. They did absolutely nothing.
Right.
So for years, Putin has been testing the Democrats. He would have never have done this during the Trump administration, and he didn't.
Right.
The type of attacks we saw from the Taliban would have never happened during the Trump administration, and they didn't. So they know now, based on their past conduct when Biden was vice president, that they're going to sit back and not really do anything kinetic.
Yeah. Representative,
and not really sanction them in the way that we really should be sanctioning them.
Yeah, Congressman, I wish we had more time. I invite you to come back when you hear from the Secretary of Foreign Affairs Veteran Affairs. I certainly hope you do, and love to have a conversation again. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's Congressman Greg Steube. We'll come back with you.